Hey there, folks. Are you passionate about democracy and concerned about the rise of authoritarianism? I'm Joanne, Kevin's wife, and I've seen him give everything to this work. That's why Coffee with Democrats matters, lifting up stories, building connections, and keeping democracy strong. So tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. for 30 minutes of conversation with elected officials, candidates, and Democratic influencers, only on Coffee with Democrats. So join me in welcoming the Executive Director and host of Coffee with Democrats, my husband, Kevin Dawson.
That always gets to me. I'm sorry. I hear her say that. It just brings a tear to my eye. I'm just overwhelmed. I love that recording of her and the way that she spells everything out, what we're doing on Coffee with Democrats. But Jeff, I want to welcome you on to Coffee with Democrats. This is the first time you've ever been on Coffee with Democrats with us. Hopefully this isn't the last time, that we'll be able to do this many more times. But thank you for joining us on Coffee with Democrats this evening. And for all the people who are out there watching this, please go ahead and make your comments. We'll try to get back to those comments as best we can. And we'll, so if you have questions, you can put it in the comment section down below, and then we'll get back to you with those as we can. It may not be absolutely live, but everybody who has a good question, we're going to answer those questions. So Jeff, thanks for joining us on Coffee with Democrats, and welcome. So how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to have this conversation. And then the great thing about Coffee with Democrats is there's so many people who like to be able to listen to this and be able to carry that conversation. And people like to have that feedback. Who are the candidates who are running? And that's basically, one of the aspects of what Coffee with Democrats does is gives a candidate like yourself the opportunity to talk about themselves. So why don't we go ahead and just jump right into that part of it and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the listeners on Coffee with Democrats. And so take it away.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Kevin. And thanks everybody for tuning in for this. You may regret that introduction though, Kevin, because there's a few things I like more than talking about myself. So you're going to give me the hook when I've said too much. But as you said, Kevin, I'm Jeff Pixley, and I'm 52 years old, almost 53-year-old resident of Norman, and an Air Force veteran. In fact, I retired from the Air Force on the 1st of September. So was that 3 weeks ago yesterday? I retired from the Air Force after 35 years, and I began my campaign for Congress on that day. So that's kind of the right now. I'll go back in time a little bit so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. So my mom and dad were Air Force veterans themselves. Although they both got out of the Air Force before I was born, I was raised in a house where military service was honored, with pictures hanging on every wall, kind of like you see behind me. My mom and dad had immense pride in their service to our country. They were multi-generational in that respect, and I grew up knowing that service was going to be part of my life. And then when I was maybe 8 or 10 years old, for the first time I saw a fighter airplane fly by, and when I saw what that was, I immediately knew that's what I wanted to do with my life. So when I was less than 10 years old, I decided what I was going to do. I never wanted to be a doctor or a firefighter. I wanted to fly jets. So that's what I set my sights on. And all the way until about 16 years old, a senior in high school, that was my main focus. And then early in my senior year of high school, I realized that despite having spent a lot of time thinking about becoming a fighter pilot, I had failed to do the one perhaps most important thing to become an Air Force pilot, is that I hadn't prepared myself to go to college. So I was not academically prepared to go to college. And even if I were, honestly, my parents didn't have the funds to send me to college. So I got very lucky that at that moment in my life, I crossed paths with the Air Force recruiter in my hometown. And she said, if you want to be an officer in the Air Force, want to fly jets, then you can enlist and then apply for an ROTC scholarship. And then we'll pay you to go to school and you can become a fighter pilot. And And I believed her. Now, her characterization of that, how the A to B to C was oversimplified, perhaps. But I don't begrudge her that, because A, it was her job to recruit me, and B, it was absolutely the best decision I made in my life, joining the Air Force, with the exception of meeting my wife and dating Andrea. Also occurred in my senior year of high school. So I enlisted in the Air Force right out of high school. I was still 17 years old when I got to basic training. I spent 4 years doing that, building bombs and missiles to put on fighter aircraft. And then I was stationed in Germany, and had a realization, thanks to a great leader, a mentor, a lieutenant that I worked for. I remembered that my goal had been to be a fighter pilot, and I really hadn't spent much time in those 4 years enlisted doing the things I needed to do to make that happen. And with a couple phone calls, it began a series of events that brought me to the University of Oklahoma. So when I came here to OU, I picked OU because it had a great ROTC program, which it still does. And it was very affordable to go to school here, because I was married and we had a 2-year-old son, and we were going to both go to college. So OU was the perfect choice for us. And we came here and absolutely fell in love with Norman, and spent 4 years at OU doing ROTC, got a pilot slot because good grades and being a good cadet are the recipe for that. And then I went off to pilot training down at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls. I was selected to fly F-16s out of pilot training. So I spent a couple of assignments flying F-16s, which is the most beautiful airplane in the world for our viewers. If you've ever seen the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds perform, that's what they fly, the F-16. Did that for a couple assignments, did some other instructional flying duties. And then my career took this really amazing, wild, and surprising turn when I was at a flying assignment in San Antonio, and I was given the opportunity to go over to Lackland Air Force Base on the other side of town, where Air Force basic training is held. And I got an opportunity to join that organization in a non-flying role. And all my pilot friends thought I was insane for taking this job, because it was very high visibility, very high risk. And they thought low payoff. But the truth was, it was this amazing opportunity to go to Lackland and be part of bringing in the newest folks in the United States Air Force and giving them the foundational experience and training they needed to buy into our values as an Air Force, and give them what I got in basic training myself, which is great leadership and an opportunity to go do great things. So I did that as a middle manager. I got to do that as a squadron commander. So I had a unit of about 75 folks and about 1,000 basic trainees. Did some other staff work in other places, including time in Washington, D.C., going to school on the Air Force's dime, which is always a good way to go to school. And then I got to go back to basic training, and I was the commander of the whole basic training outfit, which was 10 squadrons, about 1,000 people, about 4,000 to 5,000 basic trainees on the ground, and no shortage of headaches and craziness that you would expect from a bunch of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, plus all the complaints that come from congressmen and family members, and just the general nonsense that goes with the job. But the thing about that job is that nonsense is a price definitely worth paying to be a part of something so vital to our national security and such an important role in the Air Force. So I did that for 2 years, and then got extremely lucky and got sent back to OU to be the Air Force ROTC commander at OU, which is where I was a cadet, which is a great assignment for any colonel. But to get to come back to my own detachment and lead it was a real gift from the Air Force, and kind of was the icing on the cake of what had been an amazing career otherwise. And me being here at OU really set up the rest of the story and why you and I are talking today, because the election happened in November, and I was disappointed in the results, of course, but as a military member, we pride ourselves on being apolitical. So having been through a previous Trump administration, I expected it to be difficult, but I knew that we could get through it because we had done that before. And then on the morning of February 15th of 2025, a Saturday morning, I woke up and read the news on my phone, and it revealed that the president had fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, a fellow F-16 pilot and an amazing leader. He had fired Admiral Lisa Franchetti, who is the chief of naval operations, for no apparent or detailed reason. And most troublingly, he fired the lead lawyers for all three of our armed forces. And their job, for those who aren't familiar, the job of the lead lawyers, the judge advocate generals in the services, is to make sure that the orders that are passed down to the field pass constitutional muster. They're lawful legal orders. And those of us at the ground level or at the pointing of the spear can have confidence that what we're doing is on the up and up. And never in my whole career had that been a question mark in my mind. I've done a lot of stuff in my career. I've been to combat, and I've done a lot of really hard jobs, but never once did I wonder whether the people above me had the power or the authority to make sure that the orders we were getting were lawful. And that struck me. It struck me hard. So when I read that news, I realized that this wasn't going to be 2016 again, that we were in a different world, and that my oath of office required me to do something different than I did in 2016. So about 6 o'clock in the morning on that Saturday, I decided I was going to retire from the Air Force a year earlier than I had planned. When Andrea woke up, I told her that I was retiring. I hadn't yet decided to run for office at that point, but I knew that I needed to be a part of the solution. And while I loved being in the Air Force and I got so much out of being in the Air Force, I didn't see me having a voice in the future of our country in this really important time in our history while still in uniform, for the reasons I mentioned before about being apolitical. So I owed it to the Air Force to honor those boundaries and serve my retirement papers. What followed were about 200 days of extreme frustration on my part, because I was still on active duty and still required to follow orders, some of which I thought were improper but not illegal, things that I wouldn't choose myself. The scrubbing of DEI materials, for example, for my unit, taking down pictures of the Tuskegee Airmen is a real world example. In fact, in my office, right on this wall you can't see, is a poster I was ordered to take down from my halls because it represented some kind of improper ideology under the definition of the new administration. And shortly after making the decision to retire, it occurred to me that my path was through elected office, and I couldn't do anything about that either because rules prevent us from actively campaigning. So while I'd made the decision in my head of what I wanted to do, I couldn't do any planning really or preparation for that other than doing some research and speaking to some very close people and asking me honestly if I was crazy for having this as an idea. And the feedback I got was supportive, and despite it's a daunting challenge in Oklahoma for any Democrat to challenge the establishment. But a political neophyte like myself is someone who may have a bigger hill to climb, but I believe in the cause. I think my background in history prepares me well to take this fight on. And I think I bring some stuff to the table that is going to, I think, elevate the game of the party in Oklahoma as I take on this fight.
Well, that's it's an amazing background. You've talked a lot about your background, your history. I need to talk to you now about why are you running for CD4, and why should the people in CD4 vote for you? What is your platform? What are some of the things that you're going to strive for that will help the people of Oklahoma, in particular the people in CD4?
Yep, you bet. So the primary reason CD4 is because that's where I live. In fact, I will tell you that when I mentioned first my consideration of going into politics, I had people that encouraged me to move to another place where an easier to win election might happen, not out of state, but for state house races otherwise. But I'm very comfortable here in Norman. I love my home, and I'm not moving. So primarily because this is where I live, but more importantly, because as a constituent of the current representative, Tom Cole, and as someone who's been watching carefully ever since I received this assignment to come here, what has been going on, and especially what's happened in the wake of the President Trump's reelection. CD4, despite having one of the longer serving members of Congress representing us, is not well represented, certainly not in the areas that I think matter most to me. And honestly, some of the things that the current representative says he's about, I don't believe are coming through. It may be what's on the platform, but it's not something I'm seeing on my end. I'll talk about that in a second, but let me just talk about the things that matter most to me. And broadly speaking, my platform comes down to four main issues. The number one and most important, it's number one because it's the most important, the way I characterize that is restoring constitutional balance. And what I mean by that is right now, and this is not unique to this period, it's just a uniquely dangerous situation we're in now. But for a long period of time, power has been accumulating in the hands of the President of the United States. And over and over again, sometimes in baby steps, sometimes subtly, sometimes in large steps, more and more power is ending up in the hands of the president, which is not how the founding fathers intended our government to work. And under the current administration, we are beginning to see not only that power accumulation accelerating, but we're seeing decisions being made with that newfound power that are not being pushed back against by those who have the duty to do so. So that when I talk about the constitutional balance, I'm not just talking about where the power lies, but to the extent there's been an overreach in power, there are two other branches of government that have a duty to push back, to provide oversight and checks and balances, all the stuff we learned in sixth grade about how this is supposed to work. So restoring constitutional balance is the number one objective. And some people might say, well, that seems like a freshman congressman is going to restore constitutional balance. You're darn right. A freshman congressman is going to do that because one, someone who has the power now to push back will no longer be standing silent while it's happening. That's one. But two, someone like me who understands how the government is supposed to work and is unafraid to push back against those who would undermine the system for their own political benefit, or honestly for their party's benefit. And this is, I may get in trouble with your audience a little bit here, but you know, when you take an oath to serve our country, you're not taking an oath to a party, and you're not taking an oath to a person. And if a Democratic president were in office right now doing the same things that I'm seeing from our current administration, I would be just as mad, and I would probably be running on the exact same platform because it's improper. So that's number one. The other three matter, but the reason this one is number one is because if we don't get this right, really, then the rest of these are moot. So the second one is empowering working families. And that's a very broad category. Some of the hit items inside empowering working families is minimum wage. The minimum wage hasn't been increased in a long time, and the formula doesn't work. We need to readdress it from soup to nuts and figure out a model that allows someone who works a full-time job. If you're working 40 hours a week, you should be able to put food on your table, put a roof over your head, and have medical insurance for your family. If you don't, then the system is broken, and we have a system that is not built for our family members.
Oops, sorry about that.
That's all right. Under empowering working families, education. Public education is the backbone of a prosperous economy. Our public education is under attack. Some of this is a very state issue, and those in Oklahoma understand what I'm talking about. But the federal government has a vote in this, and the underfunding or defunding or the elimination of the Department of Education is something that is contributing to Oklahoma's fall. We don't have much more we can fall in education, but education is part about empowering working families. The third one is about defending national security and supporting our veterans. Our national security is important to me. I spent my entire adult life in the national security realm, and I take it very seriously and personally. But the truth is, it doesn't all live, that national security doesn't all live in the Department of Defense. The Department of State needs to be fully funded, it needs to be fully staffed, and we need to be out there in the world reclaiming our position as a leader for freedom in the world and reclaim the moral high ground that we apparently have decided to cede. If we do that properly by building partnerships and elevating other countries' games, the need for the Department of Defense to do anything but prepare goes down. The Department of Defense needs to be funded. Of course, there are plenty of reasons that a fully funded military is good for our country. Even though it costs money, it's a great investment in our security. And taking care of our veterans is nested underneath that as well. I'm a brand new veteran. I just retired 22 days ago. And I've already seen the impacts of the gutting of the Department of Veterans Affairs. It slowed down my process of filing my VA paperwork when I was going through the retirement process. and our veterans deserve better than that. I was in a very fortunate position as a relatively healthy and retiring as a colonel means me leaving active duty. I was not in a position to become suddenly financially destitute. But that's not the typical case. There are a lot of veterans out there, either currently or just having served on active duty, or those who served long ago that have earned VA benefits. They need them, and they need them right now. And a broken VA, especially one that's been intentionally broken, is dishonorable treatment of our veterans. And the last one on my list of 4 main topics is ensuring that we fight for equality, dignity, respect, and justice in our country. And that's the bottom line is Americans need to be better about treating each other better. There's not a person in this country that's my enemy. We have spent a lot of time in the last few years being tricked into believing that our neighbors are our foes. Unfortunately, our adversaries have cracked the code. They know that our First Amendment is the soft underbelly of our country. It's our weak point. It's one of the things we're most proud of, and we should be. And I stand by the First Amendment. I think the First Amendment is an essential piece of what it is to be an American. But because it is a vulnerability, we have to take extra care to ensure that we don't let it be weaponized against us. So making sure that we treat every other American with dignity and respect, and every person on our soil is given the opportunity to receive the full due process of law, because we're better than that. And while it may be convenient or politically expedient to deny someone their day in court, it's not who we are. And I think we can do a lot better. Now, why me? Right. So here I am, this retired colonel that's never spent a minute in politics. I have, a sociology degree from OU, which could come in handy, a couple of MBAs, and a bunch of combat flying hours. Why does that make me qualified to go take over for Tom Cole? The truth is, my intent is not to go take over for Tom Cole, because Tom Cole's position in the House of Representatives is one that is not. They'll hand over the chairmanships to the freshman congressman. When I get to Washington D.C., what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Washington, and I'm going to bring the needs and concerns and desires of everybody in the 4th District of Oklahoma, not just the people who voted for me, not just the people who funded my campaign, everyone, and take them to Washington, D.C. and fight for them. The era of only fighting for your donors and and for your people in your party is a disease we have the cure for. It's called treating everybody like we're all on the same team, and we all have the same end desire, is to have a country that is prosperous, that's safe, and where we can look at each other and be proud that we're all Americans. And I think sending a guy like me to Washington, D.C. is a recipe for that, because I lack some of the baggage that someone who maybe was raised in politics has. And I'm sure I'll have a ton to learn. I have no doubt. But if there's anything I learned in my 35-year Air Force career, it's that you never feel entirely ready for whatever the next job is, but everything you've done up to that point has prepared you for it. And when you get the opportunity, you jump at it. And my experience has been people who are given a big job, if they have the core values and understand what their real mission is. They understand what their oath of office means, and they're willing to sacrifice to uphold it, which sometimes means losing your job. Back to my decision to retire, I didn't have to. I could have stayed in 3 more years. That would have been more retirement pay for me. That would have been more opportunities for me to potentially advance. I wasn't going to be a general officer, but I could have taken another gig at a higher level. But the truth is, some things are worth losing your job over. And if that means going to Washington, D.C. and fighting a fight and losing my seat for doing the right thing, I'll do it, because that's how I was raised by the Air Force and my family.
Well, man, I tell you what, it is so good to meet you, and so good to have this conversation with you on Coffee with the Democrats. I hope the listeners will really get behind you on this. We do have another candidate who is running for this, who's coming on next Tuesday.
Yep.
So
for those. Also a vet. Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin. He's also a veteran, a good man, and we're on the same team. So I look forward to seeing your conversation with Mitch. Right.
Mitchell Jacob is going to be on next Tuesday. So all transparency, I think there's also a third candidate. We got to reach out and make sure that third candidate is actually a valid candidate. If so, we'll make sure that candidate is on here as well. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that I continue to hear over and over and over again, and I think that I heard you say this one other time in one of our previous meetings, is steel sharpens steel. So all the people that are working together as Democrats, no matter, they're trying to run like yourself, run for your own campaign and run for that one spot, but all of you working together and being able to slice up Tom Cole is nothing but a good thing for Democrats in the state of Oklahoma, because we've got to get rid of him. The list of failures for him and how the people of Oklahoma suffer under him is enormous. Yeah. So, and you touched on a lot of those things.
Well, let me throw one other thing at you, Kevin, while we're talking about that, because I think this is a really important point. And I know that this is called Coffee with Democrats, and there's probably not a bunch of non-Democrats that tune in. But I think once my campaign gets some steam behind it, maybe they will be. They'll at least be watching this just to see what they can dig up about the things I say and I believe in. But the truth is, a great primary, a respectful primary focused on the issues, is maybe just what the Democrats need in Oklahoma specifically, but maybe more broadly, to repair the reputational damage we've taken over the years. Sometimes it's well earned, sometimes it's not fair. But the truth is, I didn't mention math, but in CD4, I'm going to need Republicans and independents to vote for me. I'm going to, and they're not going to vote for me if they think I'm just, the Democratic boogeyman that they've heard about.
Sure.
That's why things like this are so invaluable. Getting a chance to see people face to face and melt the ice that has been solidifying between us for far too long. It's a great opportunity. So thanks for the chance to be here, and I think you're doing a service to the community by hosting this.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words. And folks, we're gonna shut down this call because we're trying to keep it under 30 minutes. Keep it easy for people to be able to watch this in small sound bites, and instead of these big long town hall things that last for hours and hours that bore people half to death. That's the reason why we have Coffee with Democrats the way it is right now. But before we go, you touched on something that is very important. We've all got to talk about it. I'm going to try to pull it up on the screen, but while I'm doing that, talk about how people can help your campaign and how people can donate to your campaign.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so my website is called pixleyforcongress.com. That's FOR Congress.com. There it has some details like that I went over today. I'm on all the social medias, although I'm new to the social media world because it's not something we do in generally in the military. So forgive my freshman approach as I'm learning social media. And then the ways to contribute, there's lots of ways to contribute. Of course, money. We have an ActBlue link. You can, if you like to pitch in the campaign, I would gladly accept that with a bunch of gratitude. But I also need folks to pitch in by talking about this, linking to videos like this, going to my website and talking about the campaign, because the word of mouth is what's going to get us the momentum we need. I feel like because I started from a dead stop 3 weeks ago, I kind of equated to sitting on the runway on my F-16 with the engine running and the brakes holding hard, and then selecting full afterburner. Well, we're getting some momentum now, and I'm ready to get airborne. So another way people can do it besides give money is volunteer. Come to events. We're doing our kickoff fundraiser next week. That's out there. If you check out Mobilize, you can come be a part of that. But I'd really love to hear from folks. There's a contact place on my website that folks can reach out with questions. I love it when people ask me hard questions and challenge me. Maybe I said something during this pitch that someone doesn't think is correct. Great, let me know. Challenge me because I'll tell you what, I'm not going to win this campaign if I can't take a fastball. So bring it. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that.
Well, you're an awesome individual. This isn't the first time we've met. For full transparency, I'm very good friends with Mitchell Jacob. You and I've met many times before. So, and I'm looking forward to seeing both of you and both of the campaigns working together. I say working together, you'll be doing your own thing, but at the same time, you're going to be attacking Tom Cole, and we need that in CD4. We need it so bad. So, and I'm looking forward to seeing those things coming together. So, hey, thanks for coming on to Coffee with Democrats, folks. Like we said earlier, we're going to be coming back on here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Mitchell Jacob is going to be on here live with us. We're looking forward to that conversation. We need to have him have equal time to be able to talk about his campaign and be able to give his pitch. So, folks, thanks for coming on Coffee with Democrats and listening to us and listening to this important conversation from our new candidate, Jeff Pixley. Hey, folks, until next Tuesday, please be safe, and thanks for joining in.